Tonight we're going to take a journey into a world where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, where hardship meets magic, and where innocence meets courage. We're going to immerse ourselves in the timeless tale of Hansel and Gretel. The voice slows down, adding an element of suspense. A story that weaves together the threads of desperation, ingenuity, and the indomitable spirit of two young children. Hansel, the resourceful older brother, and Gretel, his tender-hearted younger sister, are the protagonists of our tale. These children, born into a life of hardship, are about to embark on an adventure that will challenge their wits, test their courage, and ultimately reveal the magic that lies hidden in the most unexpected of places. The narrative pauses, letting the anticipation build. But as with every story, there's more than meets the eye. So sit back, relax, and allow the enchanting world of Hansel and Gretel to unfold before your senses. Let's dive into the story. Nestled against a spellbinding yet eerie forest, a humble woodcutter and his family resided. The woods, shrouded in a thick, mysterious fog, were home to towering ancient trees that whispered tales of old to the wind. This was the home of the woodcutter, his wife, and their two children, Hansel and Gretel. Life was simple and difficult, food was scanty, and when a terrible famine swept the land, even their meagre meals had become a luxury they could no longer afford. One night, in the depth of their crammed and humble shack, the woodcutter, a man torn between desperation and the love for his children, voiced his concerns to his wife. "What will become of us? How can we ensure our children's survival when we are barely surviving ourselves?" he queried, his voice a low murmur, heavy with worry. His wife, equally desperate yet still harboring a maternal affection for the children, replied, "Tomorrow we will lead them into the densest part of the forest, kindle fire, offer them each a morsel of bread, and abandon them to their fate. They'll lose their way back, and we will be free of this burden." This plan was met with initial resistance from the father, who couldn't bear the thought of leaving his children to the mercy of the woods and its wild inhabitants. However, the woman's relentless persuasion wore him down, and he reluctantly agreed, his heart aching for his innocent offspring. Unbeknownst to them, their children had been privy to their conversation. Gretel, the younger, shed bitter tears, her heart heavy with fear and despair. But Hansel, older and more resourceful, decided to take matters into his own hands. He ventured out into the moonlit night, the light casting hues on the pebbles that lay outside their home. He filled his pockets with these pebbles, planning to use them as a breadcrumb trail, a beacon guiding them back home. Upon his return, he reassured his sister, his voice steady and soothing, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in their lives. "Sleep well, Gretel, God will not abandon us," he asserted before retiring for the night. This was the dawn of their enchanting yet perilous adventure, one that would lead them to a magical house constructed not just of bread and cake, but adorned with windows of sparkling clear sugar and a roof of rich, dark chocolate. At daybreak, even before sunrise, the woman came and woke the two children. "Get up, you lazy bones! We are going into the woods to fetch wood." Then she gave each one a little piece of bread, saying, "Here is something for midday. Don't eat it any sooner, for you'll not get any more." Gretel put the bread under her apron, because Hansel's pockets were full of stones. Then, all together, they set forth into the woods. After they had walked a little way, Hansel began stopping again and looking back toward the house. The father said, "Hansel, why are you stopping and looking back? Pay attention now, and don't forget your legs." "Oh, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my white cat that is sitting on the roof and wants to say goodbye to me." The woman said, "You fool, that isn't your cat, that's the morning sun shining on the chimney." However, Hansel had not been looking at his cat, but instead had been dropping the shiny pebbles from his pocket onto the path. When they arrived in the middle of the woods, the father said, "You children gather some wood, and I will make a fire so you won't freeze." Hansel and Gretel gathered together some twigs, a pile as high as a small mountain. The twigs were set afire, and when the flames were burning well, the woman said, "Lie down by the fire and rest. We will go into the woods to cut wood. When we are finished, we will come back and get you." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire. When midday came, each one ate his little piece of bread. Because they could hear the blows of an axe, they thought that the father was nearby. However, it was not an axe. It was a branch that he had tied to a dead tree and that the wind was beating back and forth. After they had sat there a long time, their eyes grew weary and closed, and they fell sound asleep. When they finally awoke, it was dark at night. Gretel began to cry and said, "How will we get out of woods?" Hansel comforted her. "Wait a little until the moon comes up, and then we'll find the way." After the full moon had come up, Hansel took his little sister by the hand. They followed the pebbles that glistened there like newly minted coins, showing them the way. They walked throughout the entire night, and as morning was breaking, they arrived at the father's house. They knocked on the door, and when the woman opened it and saw that it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You wicked children, why did you sleep so long in the woods? We thought that you did not want to come back." But the father was overjoyed when he saw his children once more, for he had not wanted to leave them alone. Not long afterward, there was once again great need everywhere, and one evening the children heard the mother say to the father, "We have again eaten up everything. We have only a half loaf of bread. And then the song will be over. We must get rid of the children. We will take them deeper into the woods, so they will not find their way out. Otherwise, there will be no help for us." The man was very disheartened, and he thought it would be better to share the last bit with the children. But the woman would not listen to him, scolded him and criticized him. He who says A must also say B, and because he had given in the first time, he had to do so the second time as well. The children were still awake and had overheard the conversation. When the adults were asleep, Hansel got up again and wanted to gather pebbles as he had done before. But the woman had locked the door and Hansel could not get out. But he comforted his little sister and said, "Don't cry, Gretel. Sleep well. God will help us." Early the next morning the woman came and got the children from their beds. They received their little pieces of bread, even less than the last time. On the way to the woods, Hansel crumbled his piece in his pocket, then often stood still and threw crumbs onto the ground. "Hansel, why are you always stopping and looking around?" said his father. "Keep walking straight ahead. I can see my pigeon sitting on the roof. It wants to say goodbye to me." "Fool," said the woman, "that isn't your pigeon. That's the morning sun shining on the chimney." But little by little Hansel dropped all the crumbs onto the path. The woman took them deeper into the woods than they had ever been in their whole lifetime. Once again a large fire was made, and the mother said, "Sit here, children. If you get tired, you can sleep a little. We are going into the woods to cut wood. We will come and get you in the evening when we are finished." When it was midday, Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, who had scattered his piece along the path. Then they fell asleep, and evening passed, but no one came to get the poor children. It was dark at night when they awoke, and Hansel comforted Gretel and said, "Wait, when the moon comes up, I will be able to see the crumbs of bread that I scattered, and they will show us the way back home." When the moon appeared, they got up, but they could not find any crumbs, for the many thousands of birds that fly about in the woods and in the fields had pecked them up. Hansel said to Gretel, "We will find our way," but they did not find it. They walked through the entire night and the next day from morning until evening, but they did not find their way out of the woods. They were terribly hungry, for they had eaten only a few small berries that were growing on the ground. And because they were so tired that their legs would no longer carry them, they lay down under a tree and fell asleep. It was already the third morning since they had left the father's house. They started walking again, but managed only to go deeper and deeper into the woods. If help did not come soon, they would perish. At midday they saw a little snow-white bird sitting on a branch. It sang so beautifully that they stopped to listen. When it was finished, it stretched its wings and flew in front of them. They followed it until they came to a little house. The bird sat on the roof, and when they came closer they saw that the little house was built entirely from bread, with a roof made of cake, and the windows were made of clear sugar. "Let's help ourselves to a good meal," said Hansel. "I'll eat a piece of the roof, and Gretel, you eat from the window. That will be sweet." Hansel reached up and broke off a little of the roof to see how it tasted, while Gretel stood next to the window panes and was nibbling at them. Then a gentle voice called out from inside, "Nibble, nibble, little mouse. Who is nibbling at my house?" The children answered, the wind, the heavenly child." They continued to eat without being distracted. Hansel, who very much liked the taste of the roof, tore down another large piece, and Gretel poked out an entire round window pane. Suddenly the door opened, and a woman as old as the hills and leaning on a crutch came creeping out. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened that they dropped what they were holding in their hands. But the old woman shook her head and said, "Oh, you dear children, who brought you here? Just come in and stay with me, no harm will come to you." She took them by the hand and led them into her house. Then she served them a good meal, milk and pancakes with sugar, apples and nuts. Afterward she made 2 nice beds for them, decked in white. Hansel and Gretel went to bed thinking they were in heaven. But the old woman had only pretended to be friendly. She was a wicked witch who was lying in wait there for children. She had built her house of bread only in order to lure them to her. And if she captured one, she would kill him, cook him and eat him. And for her that was a day to celebrate. Witches have red eyes and cannot see very far, but they have a sense of smell like animals and know when humans are approaching. When Hansel and Gretel came near to her, she laughed wickedly and spoke scornfully, "Now I have them. They will not get away from me again." Early the next morning, before they awoke, she got up, went to their beds, and looked at the 2 of them lying there so peacefully, with their full red cheeks. "They will be a good mouthful," she mumbled to herself. Then she grabbed Hansel with her withered hand and carried him to a little stall where she locked him behind a cage door. Cry as he might, there was no help for him. Then she shook Gretel and cried, "Get up, lazy bones! Fetch water and cook something good for your brother. He is locked outside in the stall and is to be fattened up. When he is fat, I'm going to eat him." Gretel began to cry, but it was all for nothing. She had to do what the witch demanded. Now Hansel was given the best things to eat every day, but Gretel received nothing but crayfish shells. Every morning the old woman crept out to the stall and shouted, "Hansel, stick out your finger so I can feel if you are fat yet." But Hansel stuck out a little bone, and the old woman, who had bad eyes and could not see the bone, thought it was Hansel's finger, and she wondered why he didn't get fat. When 4 weeks had passed and Hansel was still thin, impatience overcame her and she would wait no longer. "Hey, Gretel!" she shouted to the girl. "Hurry up and fetch some water. Whether Hansel is fat or thin, tomorrow I am going to slaughter him and boil him." Oh, how the poor little sister sobbed as she was forced to carry the water, and how the tears streamed down her cheeks. "Dear God, please help us," she cried. "If only the wild animals had devoured us in the woods, then we would have died together." "Save your slobbering," said the old woman. "It doesn't help you at all." The next morning Gretel had to get up early, hang up the kettle with water and make a fire. "First we are going to bake," said the old woman. "I have already made a fire in the oven and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel outside to the oven, from which fiery flames were leaping. "Climb in," said the witch, "and see if it's hot enough to put the bread in yet." And when Gretel was inside, she intended to close the oven and bake her and eat her as well. But Gretel saw what she had in mind, so she said, "I don't know how to do that. How can I get inside?" "Stupid goose," said the old woman. "The opening is big enough. See, I myself could get in." And she crawled up, stuck her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a shove, causing her to fall in. Then she closed the iron door and secured it with a bar. The old woman began to howl frightfully, but Gretel ran away, and the godless witch burned up miserably. Gretel ran straight to Hansel, unlocked his stall and cried, "Hansel, we are saved! The old witch is dead!" Then Hansel jumped out, like a bird from its cage when someone opens its door. How happy they were! They threw their arms around each other's necks, jumped with joy, and kissed one another. Because they now had nothing to fear, they went into the witch's house. In every corner were chests of pearls and precious stones. "These are better than pebbles," said Hansel, filling his pockets. Gretel said, "I will take some home with me as well." And she filled her apron full. "But now we must leave," said Hansel, "and get out of these witch woods." After walking a few hours, they arrived at a large body of water. "We cannot get across," said Hansel. "I cannot see a walkway or a bridge." "There are no boats here," answered Gretel, "but there is a white duck swimming. If I ask it, it will help us across." Then she called out, Duckling, duckling, here stand Gretel and Hansel, neither a walkway nor a bridge. Take us onto your white back. The duckling came up to them, and Hansel climbed onto it, then asked his little sister to sit down next to him. No, answered Gretel. That would be too heavy for the duckling. It should take us across one at a time. That is what the good animal did, and when they were safely on the other side and had walked on a little while, the woods grew more and more familiar to them, and finally they saw the father's house in the distance. They began to run, rushed inside and threw their arms around the father's neck. The man had not had even one happy hour since he had left the children in the woods. However, the woman had died. Gretel shook out her apron, scattering pearls and precious stones around the room, and Hansel added to them by throwing one handful after the other from his pockets. Now all their cares were at an end, and they lived happily together. My tale is done, a mouse has run, and whoever catches it can make for himself from it a large, large fur cap. As our story of Hansel and Gretel winds to a close, it's time to reflect on the essential lessons this timeless tale has imparted. Through their journey, Hansel and Gretel exhibited remarkable bravery. Facing a daunting forest, a wicked witch, and the uncertainty of their fate, they held steadfast, showing us the power of courage in the face of adversity. But bravery was not their only virtue. Hansel and Gretel were resourceful, using their wits to overcome the challenges thrown their way. Whether it was Hansel's clever use of pebbles to mark their path or Gretel's quick thinking to outwit the witch, they remind us that sometimes our minds are our greatest tool. Above all, Hansel and Gretel's story is a testament to the importance of family. Despite their trials, the siblings stuck together, proving that familial bonds can provide comfort and strength in even the darkest times. Their joyous reunion with their father and their collective relief at the end of their ordeal underscore the irreplaceable value of family. As we conclude their story, let's carry with us the lessons of bravery, resourcefulness, and family. Let's strive to apply these values in our own lives, facing our challenges with courage, solving problems with ingenuity, and cherishing our loved ones. Remember, every story holds a lesson. It's up to us to find it and learn from it. In the words of Hansel and Gretel, my tale is done, a mouse has run. Now what will you catch from this story and turn into your own large, large fur cap? And with that, we conclude our bedtime story for tonight. As the moon takes over the sky and the stars begin to twinkle, it's time to tuck ourselves into the comfort of our beds. Close your eyes and let the adventures of Hansel and Gretel, their bravery, their resourcefulness, and their love for each other guide you into the realm of dreams. Perhaps in your dreams, you too will venture into enchanted forests, outsmart witches, or find your own pebble trail leading you to exciting adventures. Remember, every night offers a new beginning, a chance for us to embark on our own magical journey. So as you drift off to sleep, let the lessons of our story inspire your dreams, igniting your imagination and fueling your courage. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with magic and wonder. Until next time, sweet dreams.